Before I get started, I wanted to give you a little bit more context on Pearson Mathology. Pearson Mathology and Mathology is a set of K-8 print and digital resources that's rooted in academic research and best practices, co-created with over 1,000 classroom teachers and consultants across Canada, and underpinned by a practical Canadian learning progression. Mathology helps you to know where your students are and define next steps for growth, engage students at all levels while building confidence in their math skills, instill a love of and a joy for math through rich, fun math activities and stories, support job-embedded professional learning for teachers, and also support French immersion. So Mathology is adapted and not translated, so the language doesn't get in the way of the math. And so on this page here, you'll see the full slate of resources for Mathology. In the center, you can see that the foundation for Mathology is quite rich in professional learning resources. Some of these titles will actually be familiar to you. We have Taking Shape, which looks at spatial reasoning at K-2, What to Look For, and the new Facilitator's Guide, helping teachers and students develop early number sense, as well as Teaching Math with Meaning. That takes a look at the competencies in math. And across the top, we have a document called Math Success for All, which is a compilation of some of the best research, academic research that we put together as we were starting to research Mathology. In the middle, the purple cover, you'll see Mathematics Learning Progression. That is our developmental continuum upon which all of the resources have been built. It's a way of seeing where your students are and where they need to go next. And the other title that most people know quite well is Elementary and Middle School Mathematics, and it's now in a Canadian edition that's quite new. On the right-hand side, we have our classroom resources. We have activity kits for grades 1 and 2 in both English and French. We have 72 math little books from K-3 in both English and French. And today we're going to be talking about Mathology.ca, which is our online planning tool. And we have that for grade 1 and 2 in English and in beta form for French. When we first started doing research around doing a digital piece to support Mathology, we took a long look at the math teaching journey. And most of you on the line will know that it's a time-consuming multi-step process. It starts with long-range planning, flows to short-term planning, teaching and preparing to teach, as well as assessing, reporting, and professional learning. And so when you look at how a digital online planning tool can support that, we hope that that journey can be shortened somewhat to make save you a bit of time in your planning. And so Mathology.ca's proposition, first of all, is to simplify and enhance that math teaching journey through smart use of technology. And for those of you who have Mathology in print form, whether it's the activity kits or the math little books, it really does help streamline planning, teaching, assessment, and professional learning, and it integrates all those resources quite nicely. So what is Mathology.ca? It's a simple online tool for teachers containing rich math activities and pedagogical supports powered by 5 core functionalities. And these you will recognize from that math teaching journey, from search to plan, teach, assess and track, and professional learning, all aligned to Canadian curricula. And it has rich math activities and pedagogical supports at its core. So without further ado, I thought I'd take you for a quick walk through Mathology.ca. And we should be seeing it here any moment. So this is the dashboard or the homepage for Mathology.ca. And we just talked about the different functions for Mathology. And we know from doing our research that teachers often struggle with finding really good lessons. They spend a lot of time online looking for them through teacher paid teachers or Pinterest or a variety of other sources. And some of the challenges that teachers have told us they had with that is the time it takes to do that search, but also knowing that whatever lessons that you use are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate for the students. And so by creating Mathology.ca, we knew that these lessons would be there for you. And so I'm going to walk you through the different pieces of Mathology.ca, starting with search, and the homepage is your search page. And I'm going to start you off with the first way that you can search for lessons. So Mathology.ca has over 100 lessons for grade 1 and more than 100 lessons for grade 2 as well. So you really do want to be able to modify your search and make finding good lessons even easier within this platform. So searching by curriculum is a great way to start. And so each province has its own platform. The one that I'm using today, because I can only log into one at a time, is the Ontario one. Just know that for each of the provinces here today, your curriculum is in there, and it's specific to your province. And so when you see a search by curriculum, at the very top, you'll see a button here that says grade 1. You can click down and you'll see that we now have grade 1 lessons in Mathology.ca as well as grade 2. I just clicked on the grade 2. Across the top are the strands from your curriculum, and under that are the overall expectations that support that strand. When I click on the very first one, for instance, you can see there's a drop-down menu. When it drops down, you'll see the specific expectations from your curriculum. Beside each specific expectation is a little box here that's a search box. When I click on that, it brings up every math little book and lesson that supports that expectation. So that's a great way to start finding lessons that support your curriculum. And you can see you can search by grade, the type, so it might be a math little book or an activity, and by strand as well. So that helps narrow that search even more. So searching by curriculum is quite easy. The other piece that you can search by, I talked earlier about our Pearson Canada learning progression, which is that developmental continuum that supports knowing where your students are and where they need to go next. And so that learning progression is actually the heart and soul of Mathology, and it really works quite well within a digital setting. And so you can search by learning progression as well, and that's where I am right now. When you go into learning progression, our learning progression currently is K-3. And it will eventually be, I think by the new year, K-9. And across the top, you can see the strands. Below that are the big ideas within those strands. And so the very first one, for instance, here is numbers tell us how many and how much. Under that will be the conceptual thread. This one's looking at applying the principles of counting. So if you're wondering what a good lesson might be around that, once you drop down, that Pearson Canada learning progression becomes a slider that you can move forward and backwards on to find out exactly where your students are and what lessons might help support them. So I'm in says the number name sequence backwards from numbers to 10. What lesson is there in Mathology.ca that supports that? When I click on it, you'll see that we have some activities as well as a math little book. And so searching by progression certainly is a way that you can search for great lessons as well. There is another way you can search. You might just know exactly what it is you're looking for. So within this search box, it looks very much like a Google search. I'm looking for instance, skip counting, and I'm going to hit search. And you'll see that that search brings up all of the lessons we have for skip counting per grade. So you can search by grade 1 or search by grade 2 currently. And you'll see that there's a lot there. So you may want to single out a grade or the type of activity it is, or even by strand. So that narrows your search even further. There's one last place I want to tell you that you can search. And in the next iteration of Mathology.ca, this is the best part about building a digital platform. You can improve it over time. We are actually going to have a section here called plans. And right now you'll see it's across the top. To make it easier to find, that plan will reside now on the homepage. So you can search by plan. And we talked earlier about one of the biggest challenges teachers have is around planning for math. And so Mathology.ca has built in 2 ways that you can actually search for plans. You can create your own plan, and we'll talk about that in a moment, or you can start with a plan that has already been developed. With brand new resources, it's often easier to be able to start with a starting place in mind. And so we've built in a variety of lesson plans, year plans that will help teachers as they first get started with Mathology. And I thought I'd start there first. You can see we have grade 1 weekly and a year-long plans in here. I'm going to go into grade 2, and let's see if we can go into option 2. you'll see there's a variety of options. We've thought about every way that you might start your year and have created a lesson plan for the year that supports that. So option 2, in this example for grade 2, you'll see that the year is starting with repeating patterns. We have another one that starts with counting, but we thought we'd start with repeating patterns here. And when you're at the top, you're in September, you'll see that there's a math little book, 2 math little books in here, and some activities. So your first week, you'll know exactly where to go and where to begin. When you get later into September, you'll have moved on to a couple of new math little books and a couple more activities. And then when you get into Grade About now, for instance, you'll see that we have a couple more math little books and some more activities as well. So that's a really great way to start, especially when you're new to the resource. That's already built in. And if you want to use that plan, you simply say use sample plan, and that plan is available for you to start using right away. I did mention there's another way you can go about this, and I find that most teachers, once they get used to the resources, they want to start creating their own plan. They might start with ours and add to it, and so we wanted to give you an option to create your own plan. So at the very top, it says Create New Plan. You can start using an existing one, or you can start with a blank one. I'll start with a blank one, and I'll call this October Plan, and save it. And what you'll find here is a way to drag and drop really great lessons into your plan. You can put a title in the plan, and down the right-hand side, you'll see lessons that I have favorited and math little books that I have favorited. Just like Amazon, you can go in and favorite your the things that you like using most often and best, and then you can start pulling them into a lesson. So I might want to start with operational fluency. I'll pull that lesson in. And you can see that I have a chance to write a comment. That might be, I will start with this and go to adding to 20 next. Whatever your note you want is there, and you can use that. This is the next one. As you can see, you can drag and drop as well. The last thing that we've enabled you to do is to add a non-mathology lesson. We know you guys have collected some really great resources, and you might want to embed them as well. This allows you to embed any resource that you have that has a URL attached to it. So when I hit non-mathology lesson, you can add the title, a description, and this is where you embed the URL, and that gives you a link directly to that lesson. So you have created your own lesson. You can do this by the year, by the week, by the day, however you would like to build that plan, you certainly can. So that is a really quick tour through how you can search with Mathology. I'm going to take us back home, and my next step is to walk you through what a lesson looks like. So I'm going to go into increasing, decreasing patterns. And this is a sample of what a lesson looks like. So again, there's over 100 lessons at grade 1 and well over 100 lessons at grade 2. We're in grade 2 for today. And every lesson looks exactly the same. You'll see an About tab at the top, a Details tab, Assessment tab, as well as related resources, and some analytics at the top, as well as your list of favorites. So I thought I'd walk you through what a lesson looks like. In the About, you'll see that very similar to maybe the first page of a teacher's guide that you would have used in the past. We'll give you a brief introduction to what this lesson is about. We love to give you some content background, especially if math is not your first teachable. That is important. The focus for the lesson, your curriculum connections, and exactly where you are on that learning progression. And you can see the lesson we're in today actually is quite a rich lesson. It unpacks 2 big ideas from that learning progression, and it tells you exactly where you are in that continuum. So that is the About. When you get into the details, this is where I like to say the rubber hits the road with a lesson. And we start with the lesson here. For those of you who know our activity kit, the print resources really well, this is the front of the teacher's card reproduced in a digital form. And you can see that the 3-part lesson is represented here, as well as some planning at the top. So you'll see the strand represented in the top left-hand corner, the materials that you'll need for this activity, as well as any line or assessment masters that you need. And they are linked directly to this page so that you can find them really easily. We've put two versions here, PDF in case you love it exactly as it is and want to use it that way, but we also know you want to change these based on the students you have in front of you each year, and so those are there in Word as well, and you can modify them. The three-part lesson, the before, what to do during, ideas for differentiation, as well as the consolidation piece. How do I know my students are learning what I hope they're learning from this activity? And my watch fors, or what to look for that ongoing assessment. And at the very bottom, you'll see probing questions. We find that when students are doing these activities, you can see what they're doing, but it's really a challenge to uncover what they're thinking, and it's really important to uncover that thinking. And so we've provided you with some probing questions that help uncover student thinking. As I scroll down, you'll see that we have the print resources, or the activity cards that we have in print form, represented here in digital form so that you can actually project them. And so I'm going to show you what those look like. This is the same lesson I just showed you, but in a card format with the strand at the top. The student card represented here for this activity, your materials list, as well as the big ideas from your curriculum. And the lesson looks exactly as we just spoke about in digital form. It's the back that is really the power of Mathology. The back of these cards look at helping students to progress, what you might see and hear, and next steps. And so as you are monitoring this activity, you can see that students might be doing a variety of things as they're doing this activity. You can monitor what they're doing, and help them with next steps if they get stuck. So this is really that Pearson learning progression in a live format for an activity. At the bottom of this page, you see a print icon. Each one of these pages you can print off should you want to, or you might just want to project these. So that's the front and the back of the teacher card. We also have student cards, and so these are printable as well. And oftentimes they are two-sided. One is an easier side and one is a more difficult side. And you can print those if you like as well. And the last piece that we've done is we've actually completed a card. So you can see what that card looks like and what that activity looks like when it's completed. And you can print that off. We have done one other thing to help support you as you do this lesson. And again, this is feedback that came from teachers who are telling us that it's really hard to get professional learning time set aside. Release time is difficult in most provinces. And we know that that support, if you had it right on hand, it would be really great. And so on the far side, you'll see this long tab called Professional Learning. We've actually built in two different types of videos that support you right in the moment as you're planning for this activity. You can read all the pieces I just showed you, but wouldn't it be great to have a short video clip on what this activity is about and what I might be looking for as the students are doing it? So I'm actually going to share with you the very first one, which is called Learning Highlights, and we're looking at increasing patterns. And I will play this to the end because it's a very short one.
Let's look closely at this pattern. There are 2, 4, 6, 8 tiles, which are the numbers in the skip counting by 2 sequence. Some students may see the sequence as repeated addition. For example, 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6, and so on. Look at the patterns on the student card. Ask students how they can use the pattern rule to find how many tiles would be in the next term. For example, if the 4th term has 7 tiles, the 5th term would have 7 tiles plus 2 more, or 9 tiles. How many tiles would the 6th term have? For students who need more support relating increasing patterns to skip counting and repeated addition, refer to Patterning and Algebra Intervention Activity 3.
So you can see that very short video, because it's so visual, it really is a great support in the moment as you're planning for this activity. As you're planning for a unit, and so thinking about how these big ideas connect to one another across the curriculum and across grades, we've also included something called a Learning Connections video. There are 13 in total, whereas the Learning Highlights one, there's a short one for every single lesson, so over 200 videos. Here, these Learning Connection videos are a bit longer, and they do look like they look at a big idea across the grades. So you can see how this big idea plays out. And so I'm going to share with you, I won't play the whole thing because it's 13 minutes, but I will play the first minute or so you can get a sense of what this video is about and how it can support you.
Patterns are everywhere, even at the fair. What patterns do you see? In this video, we'll explore the learning pathway for the big idea. Regularity and repetition form patterns that can be generalized and predicted mathematically, outlined in Pearson's learning progression. Several Mathology resources, such as Discrete 2 Little Book, provide opportunities for students to identify, sort, and classify attributes and patterns, as well as to investigate repeating and increasing and decreasing patterns. One important concept that supports the big idea is identifying, sorting, and classifying attributes and patterns mathematically. Students begin to develop algebraic thinking by identifying, sorting, and classifying attributes. Attributes are characteristics or visual features of an object. In this kindergarten little book, these are first sorted according to color and shape. Encourage your students to sort by different attributes: size, shape, material, orientation, number, or color. Another important concept that supports the idea is identifying, reproducing, extending.
And I cut that one short. You got to see how a concept plays out in this, and how these big idea videos could support you. We expect that you might take a look at these at the beginning of your unit on this. You may dip in and dip out of those a variety of times as you progress with this lesson. So we've gone through the about and the details. I'm going to take you to assessment next. With assessment, this will look, I'm hoping, quite familiar to you. You'll see 6 boxes. It's the back of that teacher card where you're looking for seeing and hearing what students are doing as they're doing this activity. When you represent this digitally, you can actually drag and drop students into these boxes and figure out what to do next. The next steps are so important with Mathology, and so we have built in a demonstration class where you put your students in here, and then you can start dragging and dropping. And so when I scroll down, you'll see we have some students in each one of those boxes. I'm going to drag Abby down and Kareem here. And as you do that, you'll see that that square is populated. It's really important to know what to do next to help, for instance, Violet and Abby progress. So in this first box, students identified increasing patterns, but struggles to reproduce them concretely. So how do I help Violet and Abby, who are showing that this is where they are? What are the next steps I can do to help move them further along? So when I clicked on next steps, you'll see some really great in-the-moment things you can do to help move that student along and progress along that continuum of understanding for this lesson. When I go into the next box, students identifies and reproduces increasing patterns concretely, but miscounts when counting the number of tiles in each term. That definitely can happen, and we see that Jonathan, Nicholas, and Daniel are a bit stuck in this spot. So what can I do in the moment to help support them? Again, the next steps are in the moment, and they're directly on that page. So that really does help you understand, first of all, where your students are, but also the next steps to help them progress. Tied very closely to this drag and drop in the moment assessment piece are the analytics that help you when it comes to parent-teacher night or report card time. And so at the very top, you'll see a box called analytics. Whatever you complete in the assessment drives a dashboard that helps you see where you are overall with your students. So I'm going to click on analytics, and you'll see that there's a class analytics button and a student. I'm going to go into class. And here is our demo grade 2 class. You'll see that we've completed 2 lessons, and students really do need some attention there. This is grade 1, but if you're in grade 2, You can see that the grade 2 teacher is a little bit further along with these lessons. As I scroll down, you'll see that the lesson is on the left-hand side. In the middle is a status, and you'll see that, and you have an orange in progress. You're still working on this. You can see that you're on track and doing fine with these lessons. And you might have a lesson in here. I don't know if we have one in this lesson that is almost like a stop sign, a red light, saying that you might want to spend a bit more time with that lesson and go back. And you can see where the students are in those quadrants as well. When you hit view, that takes you to a view of that lesson and the assessment that you performed at that time. So this is a great way of seeing where you are at any time within any strand. You can also take a look at a curriculum view, and that will tell you where you are in the curriculum and where you might have a few gaps. I would say that most teachers I've talked to appreciate looking at the activity view and the curriculum view most. You might want to take a look at a student as well. So one of our students, Cassius, you can see exactly where he is. He's in grade 2. We're looking at the lessons that have occurred already, and you can see that he's on track in a number of them, in progress in a number, and there are a couple here that will need support. And you can see that those next steps are already built in as we talked about. So it's great. It's a great tool to help with your on-the-fly assessment, and a way of looking at your dashboard and seeing where your students are at any given time throughout the year. I'm going to take us right back to where we are, because you might want to know what related resources help support those next steps. So the last box I'm going to take us into is related resources. This is, all these related resources are directly tied to those next steps. So we have mini lessons to help support students that are on grade. We have 2 intervention mini lessons as well as an extension. So for instance, on grade, identifying and reproducing increasing patterns numerically. Here is a mini lesson that helps support where those students are. It really is a short lesson, and you can see that you can print that lesson off should you want to. The 2 intervention mini lessons, students having difficulty identifying the pattern rule, we know that that can be a spot that gets some students stuck. Well, how do I help support those students with a mini lesson? Your mini lesson is right here on the page, and you can see, again, you can print it off, and all the materials that you need are right on that page in PDF and in Word. And we have also some extension ideas as well. As you scroll down, you'll see that we know that there are always possible misconceptions with each lesson. This one looks at student doesn't think it is necessary to include the start number in a pattern rule. Here's the in the moment next step of things that you can do to help with that misconception. And a few ideas for after the lesson. So next steps that you can take in class. And again, those can be printed off. And if you have a really great home connection too with the parents, we have some next steps that can be taken at home. And importantly, these can be printed off and shared as well. As we scroll down to the bottom part, you'll see that we have support here for word walls. And at the very bottom, related lessons. And so we have an intervention lesson. And in that big idea video, we talked about helping students with skip counting. That intervention lesson is here. We have some that are on grade and some that are above grade as well. And so this is your learning progression, again, come to life at the very bottom. And we have just a few more stops on our walkthrough today. I talked about favorites. I'm going to quickly share with you what favorites look like. We know as you're using these lessons over time, you're going to have lessons that you absolutely love and will want to go back to more than once. You have a chance to love them. You can put a heart beside each one as you experience them, and they will show up here. And we also know that when you're planning, we did some great observational research where we sat in with classroom teachers, and we see that teachers will oftentimes bring their lesson in for the day on their desktop and work from there. And so these favorites will give you a chance to actually pin those favorites for your day. You'll see pin lessons here. There's 3 of them. What does that look like? When I go back to the home screen, you'll see those 3 pin lessons on my desktop. So the lesson we just talked about, The Best Surprise, which is a really great math little book that supports that lesson and extends it. and also that increasing the intervention lesson as well. So the last piece, as you can see here, we do have math little books in here. So when I click on the best surprise, the lesson looks very similar to what you just saw for the activities. We have an about section, details, and related resources. In the top part, it talks about this book, the reading level, and these are Fountas and Pinnell reading levels, the math focus, the curriculum that's being uncovered as you use this math little book, and again at the bottom, the Pearson Canada Learning Progression come to life, and you'll see that this math little book looks at the same big idea, but looks at two of the conceptual threads and unpacks those as you are going through this math little book. When I get into the details, you can see that there's a bit more information about the little book, but you can actually show this front of class, and most teachers really love this. So it says link to best surprise little book. I'm going to click on that. And what this brings you to is a read and listen version of the little book. This has two really great applications in class and listening centers or front of class, or you could also send this home for parents to use at home. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the pages of the read and listen version so you can see what this is like. I'll play just the one page.
Gramps, we're having the best birthday ever, says Ethan. It's not over yet, replies Gramps. Your mother says I can give you one more surprise.
Hooray!
Wow, what is it, asks Emma. You'll have to wait and see, answers Gramps. Please, tidy up, and then we'll hop in the car. Gramps, we're having the...
So you can see that that is a read aloud version of the math little book that you can project. We give you information on the first read as well. And the last piece on the related resources are any of the line masters that you might want to access for these math little books. They're supported quite richly with a variety of line masters, again, in PDF and in Word. And that is a very, very quick walkthrough of Mathology.ca. I have a few more slides to go before we open up the floor to questions. So just a quick recap of Mathology.ca. It's carefully curated curriculum-focused lessons at grade 1 and again at grade 2. At grade 1, you'll see that there's 101 math lessons from our activity kit. There are 34 K-1 math little books inside, as well as the K-3 learning progression, and 100+ professional learning videos. When you get to grade 2, we've included some intervention lessons as well. So you'll see there's 185 lessons from the activity kit, 38 math little books for grades 1 to 2, the K-3 learning progression, as well as those professional learning resources. And know that grades 3 and 4 are coming soon. When we get to this point, most people say, well, how much does Mathology cost? And so there's a variety of ways you can purchase Mathology. If you're a school, you may want a school's a one-year subscription. It's $140 per teacher. And there's also a 5-year subscription. It's a bit better value, 5% discount there, so $665 for those 5 years. And the best news of all, and this is a recent improvement, because we've included grade 2 in here, any teacher with that one license has access to all the lessons in Mathology.ca. So you might be a 1-2 teacher. All those lessons are in there for you to access and use, which is it was really great. We have bundle pricing, and at the end of this, I'm going to put up a slide that shares your local Pearson rep. If you want to ask more information about our bundle pricing, just know that we do have additional 5% and 10% discounts when Mathology.ca 5-year is purchased. So those are available to you as well. And if you really love it and you want to try it out, we do have a 45-day free preview going on right now. You'll see on the screen to access that free preview, it's etr.mathology.ca. So again, that's etr.mathology.ca. And that will give you a chance to kick the tires a little bit more than the really quick walkthrough we did with me today. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions. I know we went pretty fast, I appreciate that you've hung in here this long. You can go off mute if you like, or put some questions in chat. I'm going to open up the floor. If there aren't any questions, just know that I'm going to be here for the next 5 or 10 minutes. And I see, Barb, that you've raised your hand, which means you have a question. Ask away.
I was just going to ask about the lesson plans. I'm assuming that they are editable. The
pieces that go with them, so that the line masters and assessment masters are definitely editable. Not, you can't eat them, but you can edit them. The lessons themselves, you can pick and choose which ones you use and the pieces that you use from them.
Okay, so if they start off with the pre-made, or not lesson, the plans. So if they start off with the pre-made, now I can't remember, lesson plan, year plan, whatever, they can edit those to suit themselves.
They can go in, yes. You know what I find, Barb, when they first start, there's a lot of resources here. It's quite a rich resource. Yeah. The pre-built plans, because there's 3 different versions that they can choose from, I find most teachers start there just so that they can get some momentum going. But once they do, the ability to create your own plan or add to the plan that's already there, everyone loves that feature. So yes, they can.
Yeah, okay, good.
Good question.
Yeah. So so the Mathology.ca is an entirely separate purchase from getting all the print resource.
That's right, and we have bundle pricing that makes that a little bit easier for you as well. I find that Mathology.ca is the online teacher's guide, if you can think of it that way. It really is the heart and soul of Mathology, and it makes using it really easy.